Hello! After 3 years I'm back, and today we are going to look at this. This is the island of New Guinea, and this is border between Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. You might have looked at this border before and thought, why is it mostly straight, but then there is this small bump here. To discover why the border looks like this, we need to go back to the year 1848, when the Netherlands annexed the west part of the island. 30 years later, the colony of Queensland, under the control of the British Empire, took over the Torres Strait Islands. They quickly moved to the bigger New Guinea island because they didn't want the remaining part of it to fall into German hands. But in 1884, Germany declared German New Guinea over the northern portion of the island. During the same year, on 6 November 1884, the part of Queensland became British Protectorate. The Germans then annexed the northern part of the island in 1885. The same year, a border agreement between British New Guinea and German New Guinea was reached. The border looked like this. Basically, it would start at the coast near Mitre Rock on the 8th parallel of south latitude, and it would go to the 147th meridian east longitude. From there, the border would go to the point of intersection between 6th parallel and the 144th meridian. This would end at the intersection of the 5th parallel and the 141st meridian, where the Dutch border would appear, but more on that later in the video. The border between German New Guinea and the British New Guinea was created so both parties would get approximately the same amount of land. However, there were a few problems. The biggest one was Gira River, which was mostly in British territory, but right before reaching the sea, it made a small loop into the German territory. Sir William MacGregor suggested that the border should go along the river until it hit the 8th parallel, but this was thought to be inconvenient by the British Foreign Office. 3 years later, the British Protectorate was annexed by Britain, and in 1992 it was transferred to the authority of the new Commonwealth of Australia. At the end of 1908, a mixed boundary commission between Australians and the Germans was created. The main reason this commission was created was to give both sides a chance to see what the border looked like in real life and to determine whether it should be changed based on the natural boundaries or remain as it was. Both sides had their own leader. On the British side, it was Gustavus Sabine, and on the German side, it was Captain Oskar Förster. Because of malaria, the work progressed very slowly at first, but almost after a year, they finally managed to mark and examine the border on the 8th parallel. They discovered that the most gold was on British side, so the British decided not to change the border because they would risk losing it. I couldn't really find if the Germans knew about the gold, but they agreed that the border should stay as it was, with the condition that it would be changed by natural boundaries in the future. This, however, would never happen, as World War I came and the Germans lost their part of New Guinea in 1914. The German part was then transferred into the territory of New Guinea, which together with southern part became part of the administrative union of territory of Papua and territory of New Guinea after World War II in 1949. Now, what about the border between the western part of the New Guinea, ruled by the Netherlands and their neighbors? For that, we need to go back to the times when only Dutch claimed the island. They claimed the western part of New Guinea in several documents. It was firstly somewhat defined in the Proclamation of 1828 and later in the Secret Decree of 1848. In these documents, the Dutch claimed the western part of New Guinea from 141st meridian to the south and 140 degrees and 47 minutes in the north. When the British came, they always referred to the 141st meridian as the border, and the same goes for Germans, who confirmed the boundary on many occasions. However, the first expedition to actually examine the border happened in 1893. In February of 1893, Dutch explorer and colonial official Jacob Bensbach and the administrator of British New Guinea, Sir William MacGregor, met on Thursday Island. They, along with small staff, sailed from Thursday Island to New Guinea border area. When they arrived, they made calculations to determine where they were. Their observations were taken at 141 degrees, 1 minute and 47.09 seconds. It was possible to return along the shoreline to determine the position of exactly 141st meridian, but Bensbach and MacGregor had another idea. They agreed that the border should start in the middle of the mouth of the newly discovered river, which they decided to name the Bensbach River. This would enlarge the Dutch territory by approximately a 3-kilometer wide strip that would go all the way to the German border. However, MacGregor had previously been on an expedition to the central part of the island. Based on his experience from the early expedition, he proposed that the border would go as agreed, but when it reached the Fly River, it would follow the river until it crossed the previously agreed straight border again. This would give the British about the same land as the territory they would give up because of the strip. Another reason for this proposal was that the Dutch wouldn't need to take care of tribes living on the other side of the river. These tribes were sometimes very hard to control, and the Dutch would need to go through British territory anyway if they wanted to control this area. After a few corrections, the Dutch agreed to the British proposal, and together they signed and ratified the treaty on 20th July of 1895. Apart from the proposal, they also agreed that the Fly River would be free to use by the both sides. For the German part of the border with the Dutch, in 92 they officially noted that 141st meridian formed the border. Similarly to the border with the British, they wanted to use the natural boundaries if possible. Both sides wanted to survey the area, but the whole operation was a total failure due to many reasons, including financial problems and lack of officials. These problems were solved in 1910 when they finally made the expedition. When they finalized everything, Dutch made this proposal. This border tried to follow the natural boundaries based on the surveys they made with the Germans. This was however never accepted because again World War I started. As you know now, after World War I, the German part of New Guinea was given to Britain. Even though the borders between Dutch and British possessions didn't change much, there were still occasional problems along the border. For example, in 1951, Dutch officials mentioned a weird situation near the Dutch post of Waris-Jaffi. They noticed that these posts were influencing villagers on the British side, and because they were so inaccessible for the British, Dutch were also administrating some of these villages. The British initially responded calmly, stating in 1956 that immediate action wouldn't be possible, but that they were working on combined patrol for these villages. Based on their reaction, it actually seems that they were really thankful for the Dutch. This quickly changed in 1962 when British took over these villages. They put pictures of Queen Elizabeth all over the schools and government buildings, and they also held flag-raising ceremonies. Even though there were more incidents like this, most of them were resolved without any major conflict. In 1962, Western Papua gained the status of United Nations Temporary Executive Authority, and a year later it became part of Indonesia. On the other hand, the eastern part gained the independence in 1975, becoming Papua New Guinea. And that's basically all. If you want, you can watch some of my older videos, for example this one about Island of Market or this one about the territory of Cabinda, and you can expect more videos on this channel coming in the future. Thank you for watching and bye.